Heyo, what up? Altered has released their first mid-season patch, and just to bring you up to speed in case you've missed it, there are World Championship qualifiers ongoing right now for Altered's first World Championship, which is taking place later this year in Paris, France. And at the time of making this video, 6 people have qualified for the World Championship, and 3 of those people were playing Afanas, which is the hero that's going to get addressed in this patch. So let's read it and talk about it. As we reach the first half of the season for Whispers from the Maze, the first World Championship qualifiers have paved the way to this fall's World Finals, and the competition is in full swing. With the release of Whispers from the Maze, we've seen some adjustments within the meta, with a breakthrough for Kojo and Buddha decks, and a resurgence of Traced and Rossum decks. I'm honestly a little bit surprised to see Kojo and Buddha mentioned here, given that they haven't actually placed for World Championship. But let's keep going. We're observing a fairly wide diversity of decks, with Basira, Golring, Sierra, and Itsadi decks performing at the highest competitive levels, and even a Navinka and Blotch deck that qualified for the World Finals. Despite this great diversity in our players' efforts to counter the top decks, some decks continue to dominate in a way that we believe is detrimental to the meta. The following changes will come into effect starting August 11th, 2025. So notably, this will not actually impact the first World Championship qualifier happening in Dallas in just a couple of weeks, August 9th, I believe. I'm going to be there, so I'm a little bit bummed that it's not actually going to impact that tournament that I'm going to attend, but I understand why they did this. They're releasing this patch on the same day that a print-on-demand order is closing, so you wouldn't actually have time to make changes and get those cards if you wanted to pivot to a different deck based on the changes that happened here for any tournaments that come up very soon, like this one in Dallas. So it totally makes sense. Moving on. Balancing the game, the unique case of heroes, keeping true to a hero's identity. Heroes are at the heart of Altered. They define our deck building, influence the hunt for unique cards, guide playstyle, and for many, are a massive part in what makes Altered special. Each hero is built around an ability, but also an artistic design and a backstory. From this combination of elements emerges an iconic character that resonates differently with every player. Far more than a key element in deck strategy, Altered's heroes bring people together, encourage identification, and foster communities. They're definitely not wrong. A lot of the people that I've introduced to Altered really only play one hero and look specifically for uniques that would work well with that hero. Let's keep going. Modifying a hero is one of the most delicate decisions we can make in terms of balance and will always remain a last resort. It's a decision that takes time to emerge, requiring extensive study and playtesting. During this process, we must ensure that the changes made are as relevant as possible, since they not only impact gameplay, but also challenge the very identity of the character. Ensuring game accessibility. Heroes are the most visible cards in the game. They are the entry point for any player into the game's universe and are also the first step when deck building. For these reasons, it's essential that their abilities remain clear for everyone. Suspending a hero is not an option we want to consider, and we do not see it as a viable solution for the future. The emotional impact that comes from many hours of play learning to master a hero, its mechanics, and its subtleties is too significant for us to decide to entirely remove it from a player's hands. An erratum, however, must be precise and definitive. At the heart of our concerns when balancing the game is the notion of accessibility. For any adjustment we make, the game must not progressively become more complex for those who are still discovering it. An erratum cannot distort a card's original intent and playstyle, and in order to not lose players, it must be final. Some heroes prove to be even more sensitive than others, the heroes featured in the starter decks. These heroes play a dual role. First and foremost, they are designed to be the best entry point into Altered, didactic enough and easy to pick up for any player who has never played a trading card game, but they must also serve as a springboard into the more complex aspects of a game for players who wish to experience them. As such, it is difficult to imagine a player who has learned to master their hero realizing, once in a store or on Board Game Arena, that it has changed and no longer works as they thought. By extension, this is also true for starter deck cards, and that's why, in our balancing efforts, we place great importance on solutions that ensure this entry point always remains wide open and reliable for our new players. That's why when a hero receives an erratum, our objectives are to reduce excessive power without making it unplayable. It's kind of funny considering some previous hero that's been errated. Preserve its identity and playstyle. Maintain a simple and accessible design, ensure a deck building and gameplay experience close to the original, and ensure the deck remains competitive at a reasonable level. So all of this talk is alluding to a change to a hero, and you've probably already seen it is to Afanas, so let's check it out. So this is the Afanas before, if you weren't familiar, but I imagine if you're watching this video, you probably were. When you play a spell, target character you control gains 1 boost. This effect is super powerful. It is an uncapped boost, meaning you can play as many spells as you like in a turn, as many cheap spells, and keep putting boosts on your characters. Now let's compare it side by side to the Bravos hero that puts boosts on things. This is Basira. Basira is capped. You can only put 1 boost on something, and it's when you get another boost. This hero is not capped. You can play as many spells as you like and gain as many boosts as you like. And they talk about it more in this article, so let's just keep going. The new Afanas reads, spells you play with hand cost 1 or less are fleeting, and the rest is the same. When you play a spell, target character you control gains 1 boost. This is a pretty heavy-handed nerf to Afanas in my opinion. For context, the last World Championship qualifier, where an Afanas was first place, the Afanas was playing 11 spells in their deck with hand cost 1 or less. This nerf specifically targets the card quality for Afanas. So your magical trainings, your beauty sleeps, your sleight of hands, they all become much, much worse with this change. I'm personally excited to see what uniques Afanas pivots to with this change. And they talk more about the uniques and what Afanas currently plays, but I'm hoping that this means when you play a spell, you'll get a different payoff now for Afanas. That's the kind of unique angle you're looking for. And we'll just have to see if this makes Afanas viable still after this change. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Correcting Afanas' overperformance. Although it has already undergone several adjustments, Afanas remains today the most dominant deck in the meta. At WCQ Lille, we saw many decks emerge specifically built to counter it, and both a Traced and an Evinka even reached the top 4. However, it is very difficult to build an effective deck against Afanas without exposing yourself to other decks in the format. Its versatility and ability to exploit resources make it particularly resilient to targeted counters. This is definitely a struggle that I've felt myself. Personally, I believe Sigismar to be one of the strongest decks in the meta, and so if I build my deck to counter Sigismar, then I'm going to lose to Afanas, and vice versa. The crux of the issue comes from repetitive sequences where players would abuse 1-cost spells by returning them to hand, thanks to uniques with effects like, you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand. Notable among these cards are Magical Training and Beauty Sleep, as well as Helping Hand before its suspension. This game plan allows players to pass the turn for a low cost while exploiting Afanas' power to develop enormous stats on the board. We believe that by bringing Afanas back to a fair level, other decks with already satisfactory performances will be able to emerge and compete with the top decks in the meta, breaking Afanas and Sigismar's hegemony. And don't worry, I didn't know what that word meant either, but it just means them being on top, them being the best, the rulers, so on and so forth. Moving on, from Waru to Afanas, a refined approach. So before I start reading this, I did want to mention, if you're not familiar, Waru is a hero in Altered that has been errated in the past, and Waru went from being extremely overpowered or overtuned to being basically unplayable. Waru is a significant example for us. After largely dominating Altered's early competitions, we aim to bring the hero back to a less oppressive power level. To return the meta to a stable state, we acted more quickly than we would have preferred, prioritizing safety when choosing the erratum at the expense of the hero's competitiveness. With the experience of Waru's erratum in mind, we wish to take a more progressive and precise approach with Afanas. Even before considering the hero, we suspended Helping Hand, adjusted the expedition and advancement rules with the checked victory step to reduce the impact of Small Step's Giant Leap, and placed Katagarin Mage Dancer on the Watchlist. These measures aim to mitigate the performance of the Afanas strategy without distorting its playstyle. This preparatory work allowed us to more finely understand Afanas' problematic points and to test numerous versions before arriving at an erratum. Our goal is to implement a decisive and lasting change that resolves the frustrations expressed by players while preserving the hero's identity and competitiveness. The first adjustments we tried slightly reduced Afanas' efficiency, but didn't stop the loop of cheap spells being returned to hand, which remained problematic. To correct the situation, we explored 2 approaches: directly reducing the power of its ability by limiting its capacity to place boosts, or accentuating its weaknesses by making its characters or card advantage more vulnerable. We opted for the second option as it better reflects the hero's spirit, high stats but requiring precise deck building and sequencing to be fully exploited. I'm glad that they included this section, because Waru, if you're not familiar, was a hero in Altered that was extremely overtuned on release and was very oppressive. And when they released an errata to Waru, he became basically unplayable, to the point where you never see it. Acting at the right time, all these progressive steps have allowed us to end up with the erratum we are presenting to you today. Once this solution was validated, we chose to communicate it as quickly as possible instead of waiting until the end of the season. We aim for the World Championship season to be the culmination of a year of competitive play and hope that with this latest adjustment, the meta will be more diverse than ever. While we considered delaying this erratum so that everyone could prove themselves in the same competitive environment, we ultimately judged it better for all players and the health of the meta to propose it to you now. And then they make a isolated call out here for Helping Hand, which Helping Hand remains suspended for the time being, giving us time to observe the patch's overall impact. It is likely to return in a future update, either in its current form or as an errated version. This makes sense. You want to see how Afanas changes shake out. Helping Hand is really good in Afanas, but now that spells with hand cost 1 will gain fleeting, Helping Hand gets quite a bit worse. So I wouldn't be surprised if Helping Hand comes back exactly the way it's printed. But we'll have to see how Afanas shakes out. Maybe he's still amazing. We'll see. As for some other suspended cards here, we've got Moonlight Jellyfish, all uniques, the Baba Yaga Ortis faction shifted rare, and Helping Hand, which we've already talked about. No changes, no further changes to any of these cards. A little bit bummed by this because I have a few Moonlight Jellyfish myself. Lindaway is my favorite hero, and I'm excited to try them if they ever come off the suspension list here. As for the watch list, we've got the Katagarin Mage Dancer, which they mentioned earlier, the Ortis Attorney rare, and they have now added Bugfix to the watch list. Bugfixed and traced combos. At WCQ Lille, we saw the emergence of trace decks based around a combo using Bugfix and uniques that allow you to return a card from your reserve to your hand when creating a brass bug. Once assembled, this interaction allows you to pass the turn for 1 mana while repeatedly generating a 2/2 brass bug. If you're not familiar, Bugfix is a 1 mana spell that says you can remove a counter from a card that you control and create a 2/2. Well, Traced is a card that you control that gains counters. So the comment that they're referring to here is you would play the Bugfix, remove a counter from your Traced, it would make a brass bug, and then the unique would return that Bugfix from your reserve to your hand, which would then put another counter on Traced. Essentially making an infinite loop, quote unquote, of a bunch of 1 mana brass bugs. But you would have to pay 1 mana for them every time, of course. This game plan can lead to repetitive game sequences where the player dedicates almost all their mana to chaining Bugfix and constantly using after you. This can sometimes make the experience monotonous for the opponent without necessarily creating a major imbalance. Personally, I would definitely beg to differ. Spending 1 mana to make a 2/2 over and over and over again is almost certainly better than what your opponent could ever be doing. Sequencing is very, very important in Altered, and if I can spend 1 mana to make a 2/2, and then you have to go and spend however much mana that you spend, and then I can make a 1 mana 2/2 again, and then you go, that is going to be significantly more powerful than most other deck strategies. We are closely monitoring the results of Trace decks with a Bugfix game plan. The combo is certainly powerful, but for now it is not oppressive within the meta, and many Trace decks achieved very good results without using this combo. For sure, I mean, the uniques are certainly very limited for this kind of combo that you're trying to assemble. I will say I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't mention limited or draft at all in this article. I personally found Bugfix to be extremely powerful in draft. I've gone undefeated at the last 2 draft events I've attended by drafting 4 Bugfix and an Itzadi hero. Bugfix is extremely powerful with removing counters from heroes, especially Itzadi and limited. As for the effective date, this mid-season patch comes in effect August 11th, 2025, so as I've already mentioned, this won't take effect for the Dallas World Championship qualifier that I'll be at, and they say that they're still working on player compensation. I think they said that in the last patch over 2 months ago, so we'll have to see if anything comes of this. I don't expect much because heroes are basically worth nothing, and the only thing that's really changed in this is Afanas getting errated. Let me know what you guys think of the new Afanas, if you still think he's going to be a meta-breaking boogeyman, or if it's Lindaway's time to shine. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.